Bones of the Atacamans. I mean, doesn't that just conjure an image?
It really does.
That's the meaning behind Arackar licanite, the name of a, well, relatively newly described sauropod dinosaur unearthed in Chile.
Uh-huh.
And that name, it's so evocative. It's our launch pad for this deep dive. We're going to explore the story of this creature, what it tells us about a world long gone.
Exactly. We're plunging right into the details of Arackar licanite. It's a titanosaur, lived in what's now the Atacama Desert, way back in the late Cretaceous.
Late Cretaceous, so we're talking.
Yeah, think roughly 83 to 66 million years ago. It's the Campanian and Maastrichtian stages, right near the end for the non-avian dinosaurs.
Wow.
The rocks it was found in, they're part of the Hornitos Formation in the Atacama province. And, what's kind of surprising is the fossils were actually found back in 1993.
93, so a while ago.
A long while ago.
Yeah.
But it wasn't formally described and named until 2021.
Almost 30 years. That really highlights the patience involved, doesn't it? The meticulous work in paleontology.
It absolutely does.
So this isn't just about another cool dinosaur find. It's also like a window into that whole scientific process.
Yeah.
The careful steps needed to identify and, classify these ancient giants.
Right.
Plus, we'll get into where Arackar fits in the huge Titanosaur family tree.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a close cousin to some others we know.
Yep, we'll look at that. Our main source here is the scientific paper that finally brought Arackar into the spotlight, along with some related info.
Great.
Precisely. And let's start by unpacking that name because it's really meaningful. Arackar, like you said, skeleton in Kunza.
Kunza.
Yeah, that's the language of the Licananti people. You might also know them as the Atacama people.
Okay.
And then Licanante means of the Atacamans.
Ah, so put it together.
Bones of the Atacamans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, I think, beautiful way the researchers honored the indigenous culture and the land itself, which held these fossils for millions of years.
It really is. And the discovery story, it has a few stages. The first bits, they were found back in 93, you said.
That's right. At a place called Quebrada La Higuera, it's about 75 kilometers south of Copiapo, a city in Chile.
Okay.
Then, jump forward quite a bit to 2012, some of the same researchers who later described Arackar mentioned these fossils. They noted specifically that it wasn't Atacama titan.
Another Chilean titanosaur.
Exactly. So that was a key step, ruling out what it wasn't, part of defining what it is, like process of elimination.
Yeah, makes sense, like solving a puzzle.
Definitely. Then nearly another decade passes, and finally, 2021, we get the full description and the name, and it was a real team effort, 8 researchers involved.
8. Who was on the team?
Let's see, David Rubilar Rogers, Alexander O. Vargas, Bernardo Gonzalez Riga, Sergio Soto Acuna, Jonathan Alarcón Muñoz, Jose Iriarte Diaz, Carlos Arevalo, and Carolina S. Gutstein.
Wow, quite a list. Collaboration is key, clearly.
Absolutely.
And they designated a holotype, right? It's sort of type specimen?
Exactly. SNGM1, that's the catalog number. Think of it as the definitive example for Arackar licanite.
And what bones does that include? What do they actually find?
It includes parts of the neck vertebrae, some back vertebrae, a humerus.
Upper arm bone.
Right. A femur, the thigh bone, and an ischium, which is part of the hip.
Okay, so a decent amount of material.
Yes, and what's really significant here is that these bones belong to a juvenile.
A young one. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, not fully grown. But even so, this specimen, SNGM1, is the most complete sauropod skeleton found in Chile so far.
The most complete. Even as a juvenile, that is significant.
It really is. That completeness is, it's gold for paleontologists trying to piece together the anatomy and figure out the relationships between these giant herbivores.
So this young bone of the Atacamans, how big was it?
The estimate for this juvenile is around 7 meters long. So what's that, about 21 feet?
21 feet. That's already pretty big for a kid.
It is. We don't know the full adult size yet, of course. That remains a question mark.
But what can these bones tell us about its unique features?
Yeah.
What makes Arackar stand out?
Well, the researchers identified several really distinctive features, particularly in the vertebrae. Those backbone bones.
Okay.
There's subtle differences in shape and structure compared to other titanosaurs, but they're consistent and they're crucial diagnostic traits.
Right, the little details that matter. So let's dig into those. What's unique about these vertebrae?
Okay, so one thing is a high and wide sort of scooped out area, a fossa on the vertebra. It's located between the front joint process that connects to the vertebra in front, and the main body, the centrum of the vertebra.
High and wide hollowing.
Okay. There's also another hollowed out bit. This one's between the parapophysis, where a rib attaches, and a bony ridge called the lamina. And this specific hollowing, it stretches across the whole front face of the base of the neural arch, the arch over the spinal cord.
Right.
But importantly, it doesn't go above the spinal canal itself.
That's very specific, almost like an address on the bone.
Exactly. And there's more. The team also noted that the posterior joint processes,
The ones connecting to the vertebra behind.
yes, those are noticeably narrower than the neural spine that's the big blade sticking up from the vertebra.
Narrower. Okay.
And also, the ridges of bone that run between that neural spine and these posterior joint processes, they're kind of reduced, shorter compared to the actual joint surface, the facet.
So these might seem like tiny details to us, but for paleontologists.
They're like fingerprints. They tell you about how the spine might have moved, how flexible it was, and critically, how Arackar is related to other titanosaurs.
Fascinating. So based on these unique bony fingerprints, where does Arackar actually sit on the big dinosaur family tree?
Okay, so the analysis places it firmly within Titanosauria. That's the huge group of sauropods dominant in the Cretaceous.
Right, the last giant standing, basically.
Pretty much. And within Titanosauria, it's nested further down in a subgroup called Lithostrotia.
Lithostrotia, got it.
Now, what's really interesting is where it fits within that group. The study found Arackar to be a sister taxon to Isosaurus.
Isosaurus, that's the one from India, right? Short neck, unusual forelimbs.
That's the one. So, sister taxon, what does that mean?
Okay, yeah, break that down. Evolutionary siblings.
Basically, yes. Think of that family tree diagram, a cladogram. It means Arackar and Isosaurus share a more recent common ancestor with each other than either does with any other dinosaur included in that specific analysis. They branch off together.
Okay, like closest relatives in that particular grouping. So who else is nearby on that branch?
Well, the cladogram presented in the paper shows Arackar and Isosaurus forming this sister pair, and that pair together is the closest relative to Rhepetosaurus.
Rhepetosaurus from Madagascar, another well-known titanosaur.
Exactly. And then further out, branching off earlier, you've got others like Malawosaurus, Barudatin, Tapiosaurus, Alamosaurus, and then a big group that includes Opisthocolacadia and the Saltasaurina. So it sits within a pretty diverse lineage.
A real who's who of late Cretaceous titanosaurs. And didn't the paper also mention a possible link to Saltasauridae specifically?
Yes, they did suggest Arackar might belong to Saltasauridae. That's a family known for some members having bony armor, the osteoderms.
Oh, right, like Saltasaurus itself.
Precisely. But they also noted that its exact placement, whether it definitively falls within Saltasauridae or exactly where, is still something needing more investigation. Future finds could really help pin that down.
It really paints this picture, doesn't it? A vibrant, diverse ecosystem of these absolutely colossal animals roaming South America near the end of the Cretaceous. How important is finding Arackar in that bigger picture?
Oh, it's quite significant. South America was a real hotspot for titanosaur evolution and diversity leading up to the KPG extinction event.
The one that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs.
Exactly. So every new find, especially a relatively complete one like Arackar, helps us untangle the evolutionary web. How were these giants related? How did they spread across the continent?
So even though this particular specimen is a juvenile, its completeness makes it a really valuable piece of that puzzle.
Absolutely. It provides crucial anatomical data points. Because it's the most complete sauropod from Chile, it gives us a much clearer reference point for understanding sauropod evolution specifically in that region and how it compares to titanosaurs elsewhere in South America and indeed the world. It helps fill in the map.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. What are the key things for us and for you listening to take away from this deep dive into Arackar lichenante?
Right. Well, first, Arackar lichenante is a Lithostrosian titanosaur, identified from late Cretaceous Chile. Second, its name, Bones of the Atacamans, is a powerful connection to the land and its indigenous people.
A really great example of thoughtful naming.
Definitely. Third, the holotype specimen, though juvenile, is the most complete sauropod found in Chile to date, which is incredibly valuable. Fourth, it has unique vertebral features that identify it and suggest it's the closest known relative of Isosaurus from India.
The connection is fascinating.
And finally, this discovery significantly boosts our understanding of titanosaur diversity and evolution in South America just before the dinosaurs' time ran out.
So we end up with this amazing snapshot, a glimpse into the early life of one of these giants in the ancient Atacama region. And it sparks so many more questions, doesn't it?
It always does in paleontology.
Yeah, like what else is waiting to be discovered in those Atacama rocks? What future finds might tell us more about Arackar's life, its adult size, its relatives?
Hmm.
And you just have to wonder, what did the world actually look like through the eyes of that young bone of the Atacamans?
It's a powerful thought.
It really is.
Yeah.
Almost beyond imagining. If you are keen to explore this more, definitely check out the original scientific paper by Rubula Rogers and colleagues. It's a fascinating read in itself.